Well, we're just a few days away from the 2024 NFL Draft happening up in Detroit, Michigan this year. But we're here in Ticketmaster Studios with Miss Tori McElhaney to talk about her final mock draft of the season. She's made, what, 7, 8 of these?
I'm topping out at 9.
9.
Yeah.
9 is insane. So we've gotten through every single possibility. And we have the final one presented by Georgia Lottery today. We're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. As we know, the Chicago Bears have the #1 overall pick this year, which was acquired from the Carolina Panthers last year. They obviously traded wide receiver DJ Moore up to Chicago last year. So it's really no surprise. No. It's been talked about, I think, since the middle of the college football season last year. Who do you have going #1 overall?
I mean, it's absolutely no surprise at all. Caleb Williams going #1 overall. This is something that people have had, like Taylor was saying, set in stone for months now. Yeah. I can't name a mock draft in recent memory of the last few months where this guy hasn't been the #1 overall pick. He is instinctive. He's dynamic. And this is a funny one. Dane Brugler of The Athletic said that he is the karaoke style version of Patrick Mahomes, which is my new favorite term of this entire draft class.
I mean, I think if I was to be regarded and in the same topic of Patrick Mahomes, I'd be pretty happy. So obviously he's probably going to be going #1 overall, going up to the Chicago Bears. So let's go ahead and go to #2, which this one was a little bit more interesting because I think a lot of people really had Jaden Daniels mocked at that #2 spot, but you have Drake May. So talk to me about this. Why does he fit here?
Here's the thing about Drake May. I actually think that he is someone who has a lot more than what people realize. I mean, this is a guy in 2022 who led the Tar Heels in rushing yards. I mean, this is a guy that I think people think about, oh, he's a true pocket passer, but he has a lot of levels to his game that I think could really, really help a team like the Commanders.
Yeah, he's had 2 starting seasons with North Carolina, and in those 2 seasons, he led the team to the 2 most productive seasons by any quarterback in North Carolina history. I mean, this guy is amazing under the under center. So yes, so #2 going to Drake May, but you have Jaden Daniels going 3, which I think a lot of people thought Drake May would go to New York or New England.
Right.
So why him?
So I understand why there's this discrepancy between 2 and 3 with Jaden Daniels and Drake May.
Right.
But here's the thing about Jaden Daniels, and also I'll say this too about where the New England Patriots are right now. I think the New England Patriots are in a position where they are trying to do something new, something different, breathing life into the organization. And Jaden Daniels is a different type of quarterback that has the ability to do that. Big time playmaker, big time arm, has a lot of movability in the pocket. I mean, this is a guy that can be very dynamic.
Yeah, so he's a transfer actually from the Arizona State University. I think a lot of people kind of forget about that a little bit. Like, he's a Heisman winner, he's a transfer student, and he already has his degree. He won a Heisman Trophy at LSU. I have to read this stat for you. He's the first player in college football history with 12,000 plus passing yards and 3,000 plus rushing career yards. I mean, he's incredible, and for New England to get him here at 3 before Washington gets him is kind of a huge deal. But let's move to a team that isn't going to take a quarterback, in your opinion. The Arizona Cardinals. You have them taking a wide receiver.
I do.
Talk to me about this one.
So Marvin Harrison Jr. is arguably, I would say, the best wide receiver in this draft class. This is a guy who we talk about dynamic. That's a word that comes up a lot of times. I know I used it with Caleb Williams. This is the wide receiver version of this, Marvin Harris Jr. Now, what's going to be really interesting, and this is something that I do need to preface, we aren't doing trades in this mock draft. So there could be a lot of movement in that top 10 with teams like Arizona and the team we're about to get to, Los Angeles Chargers, if they're willing to move down, for some teams that we're going to talk about later that want to move up for some quarterback.
Right. So obviously, and his dad too. I mean, talking about an Indianapolis Colt right here who is just like incredible. You can't really tell the NFL story without him, right? But it's an interesting fact about Marvin Harrison. He actually had to be convinced to take NIL deals because he thought it was going to be a distraction from playing football. So if you talk about someone who's professional, that's going to come in and going to work hard, this is going to be a rookie that you want. And having him at 4 with the Arizona Cardinals without a trade is going to be a huge pickup for them. But let's move right along. #5, Los Angeles Chargers. Who do you have them taking?
Malik Neighbors. And this is someone who, I mean, we're about to see a run on receivers, y'all. If there aren't any trades involved and there is no one moving up to get some of these quarterbacks, a JJ McCarthy, for example, you're going to get a Malik Neighbors in a top 7 pick. And I do like him with the Chargers, especially knowing what the Chargers need. It's a very good example of when need and also probably best player available matches up pretty well.
He is, and if Marvin Harrison is not here, I mean, you have to take Neighbors.
Right.
He's been electric for LSU for a long time now, and then having Mike Williams being gone for the Chargers this year because they had to free up that cap space, you need a wide receiver there for Justin Herbert to throw to, and this could be a great addition to their offense, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go ahead. Number 6 overall, New York Giants, another wide receiver.
I'm telling you, the wide receivers are flying off the board because this group is so deep. I mean, you look at this top, let's say 20 receivers. I think that we're going to look at this receiving class and be like, you know what? It's a pretty dang good class. In a couple of years, we're going to look back on this class, and Rome Odunze is a very, very key part of it. This is actually someone who I mocked to the Falcons very early on before we even got to free agency because we knew the Falcons desperately needed wide receivers. Drake London, the only pass catcher from 2023 coming into 2024. But now the Falcons have acquired 3 new receivers, and I felt like as much as I like Rome Odunze, I truly felt like this is a good pick for him.
I think so too, and honestly, it was so fun watching him this year. I think that he made Michael Penix Jr., who's a great quarterback, which we'll probably see a little bit later down in the draft, but he made him look so amazing. He's such a good wide receiver, and something to know about him as a human is he is a guy that's going to stay. He's a guy that's loyal. He was there over all that coaching turnaround in Washington, and he stayed and stayed and stayed. He was going to go to the draft in 2023, but he decided to stay for the 2024 or the 2023 season, excuse me. And it actually worked out beautifully for him because, let me see this, he's a consensus All-American, a first-team All-Pac-12. He led the FBS in receiving yards this year. I mean, it's worked out for him, and I think it will work out, and he'll be a top 10 pick as well. So,
I agree.
All right, let's move around along to pick number 7, Tennessee Titans. You have.
We got a big boy on the board.
Big boy. Let's talk about this one. Joe Alt, what do we think?
So he is the consensus number 1 offensive tackle in this draft class. I mean, it's you look at across the board, this is somebody who has done wonders for Notre Dame. And someone who really shaped and molded what they were able to do as an offensive front. Now, if you're the Tennessee Titans, that's exactly what you need. Again, need versus best player available. It's actually meeting up perfectly for the Tennessee Titans at number 7.
Yeah, we were talking about Marvin Harrison having a dad that was in the NFL for a long time, but so was his dad. And he actually decided to go to Notre Dame instead of Iowa, which was one of his first offers because he wanted to pave his own way. He wanted to make his own name. So you're going to get a guy in Joe Alt who really has he has something to prove. He's not going to walk in with his dad's name. He's going to come in, prove to you that he should be on the starting roster, and it's going to be a big pickup for the Tennessee Titans if they can get him at 7.
And I think they will. I think he'll be, especially if there's a run on quarterbacks and receivers, this guy will be waiting for them at number 7.
So we'll see what happens at number 7. But let's get to the number 8 overall pick, the one that everyone's been waiting for. We've all been talking about for months and months and months. And you have Dallas Turner from the University of Alabama.
Look.
Why him?
Yeah, look, here's the thing about Dallas Turner. I understand everybody's like, oh, look, another mock draft with Dallas Turner and the Falcons marrying together. It makes too much sense. If you're not going to trade down, which here's my thing, is like the argument could be made that the Falcons need an edge rusher, they need cornerbacks, possibly receivers, maybe a third quarterback. But I really do think that number 8 overall is too high for some of these cornerbacks, which we're going to talk about later. I don't think it's too high for someone like Dallas Turner, who is the best edge rusher in the draft class. So when you're kind of weighing this in your head, if you're the Falcons, it's like, all right, if we're not moving down, which personally, I would like to see that. I would like to see you get some draft capital later on, potentially maybe even a future first-round pick to set you up for the future and still get one of those cornerbacks, or let's say this, Jared Verse, like that FSU edge rusher as well. But here we are at number 8. Falcons aren't moving, and you have the best edge rusher in the draft class available. You got to take him.
Yeah, and you know what, guys? Nick Saban has sung his praises this offseason. And I think if Nick Saban is singing your praises, I mean, you probably should take him if he's available, right? But let me ask you this, because I do think most mock drafts have him coming to Atlanta at 8. But what about Jared Verse? I think that his name has kind of come up a little bit more. Can he be there at 8? Will the Falcons take him at 8? What is the difference between these two players, and why do you think Dallas will go at 8 instead of Jared?
It's a great question, and the thing that I go back to is Jared Verse plays a very violent and aggressive game, and that's really, really great. But when you're talking about a top 10 pick, you want someone who has shown a level of consistency over years. I think Jared Verse is a fantastic player, but I don't know if I'm willing to spend a top 10 pick on him. Again, if we're at 11, 12, 13, 16, wherever, mind you, I'm okay with Jared Verse. I'm okay with a Terrion Arnold or a Quinyon Mitchell, one of those corners.
Yeah.
But at number 8 overall, when you have your pick of the litter in terms of defensive guys, that's the one you go after.
Okay, so I know that we're not really doing trades right now. We're gonna get down to a couple other teams that could really have a great chance of trading up in this draft around that 11, 12, 13 spot. But when you look and if the Falcons do decide to trade down, who would you like to see we trade down to and grab Jared Verse, Quinyon Mitchell? Like, who are those guys that you want to see come to this team, and if the Falcons decide to trade down?
Yeah, it's those corners, it's those edge rushers. I mean, Latu, you're talking Jared Verse, you're talking Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, if you go down far enough, you could even be talking about a Nate Wiggins, who's actually from Westlake High School here in Atlanta. I mean, there are a lot of different options at those 2 positions mainly, which are premium positions that the Falcons do need. Here's the thing about when I'm looking at the draft class in 2024 that I can't say that I felt about Falcons draft classes to this point. The Falcons roster right now can go out and play a game. So this draft class is just enhancing what you already have, what you're already able to fill. Who better to advance that than someone like a Dallas Turner, or if you do trade down, Jared Verse, all these guys that we're talking about.
Right.
I mean, you have a really, really good opportunity here. Again, if you have these teams shuffling around to move up for some of these quarterbacks, which we're going to get into a little bit more. I mean, that seems to be the case.
Yeah. All right, so Falcons will pick number 8 overall. You have Dallas Turner going over to the Falcons, and we're going to see if they trade up, trade down. Anything can happen on Thursday night, but we're going to see. Let's go ahead and get to number 9 through 16 here. Lots to talk about. I want to talk about the Bears really fast because obviously they got their franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams, but now Brian Thomas Jr., a wide receiver to throw to. Talk to me about this guy.
Yeah, so obviously I love the idea of this buddy cop situation between Caleb Williams and Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, if you're really kind of thinking about 2 top 10 picks, you want to go premium skill positions, and who better at this point in time with Malik Neighbors off the board, Marvin Harris Jr. off the board, Roma Dunze off the board. Go Brian Thomas Jr., partner him with someone like Caleb Williams. And this is a duo that could probably be pretty dangerous down the stretch.
Yeah, I love having those wide receiver quarterback duos that kind of go through the rookie contract together. Obviously, it's a great wide receiver to learn from in DJ Moore. I mean, so many reps on the field with both the Panthers and the Bears. So it's going to be great to learn from him. But let's go to pick 10.
All right.
We got to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs for just a second. Show our bias just a little bit. Brock Bowers, number 10. Because why is he number 10? Talk to me about this one.
Because I couldn't let him fall out of top 10. I couldn't do it. Here's the thing about Brock Bowers. He's someone who can do a lot of things very, very well. And I know we talk all the time about his red zone threat level and how good he is in the pass game, but this is someone who's a really good inline blocker. This is someone who gets good separation on his routes. He can stretch it downfield. This is someone who, I think if you're an offensive coordinator and he's on the board and you're looking at a need at tight end and just a pass catcher in general, it's really hard to pass up on this guy.
Yes, I think honestly too, him at 10 is honestly a little bit of a steal because last year obviously he had the ankle injury, he had to have tightrope surgery like Tua Tagovailoa did when he was at Alabama. And so he dropped a little bit in his draft stock and his draft value. But I think him at 10 is honestly a steal, and for the New York Jets to get him and him getting catches or catching the ball from Aaron Rodgers, that could be interesting. A very dangerous duo. So let's go ahead talking about quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, JJ McCarthy, 11. He dropped a little bit out of the top 10. Why do you think he should go to the Minnesota Vikings?
So here's the thing. I'm going to pull back a little bit and let's talk about 11, 12, and 13. These 3 picks are what I'm calling the linchpin of the entire draft. The Broncos, the Vikings, the Raiders. These are quarterback hungry teams. These are teams that desperately need a quarterback. They're okay for right now, but you really are starting to think and hear about potential trade scenarios with this group. So let's talk about it. Minnesota Vikings, they have a number 11 overall pick and a number 23 overall pick. Easily could move into the top 10 with an Arizona or Falcons. Let's just throw that out there. And then you have Denver and you have Las Vegas. And these are 2 teams that also in the quarterback hunt, in the quarterback market. They don't have as much to play with like the Vikings do, but they still have an opportunity to, if they're really willing to move some assets, they can get in the top 10 too. But here's the thing, we don't have trades in this mock draft. This is all speculative. This is all just kind of throwing different ideas out for you guys to think about at home. But I wouldn't, honestly, I'm sitting here and I know I have JJ McCarthy going number 11 to the Vikings. I could see it very easily happening that someone like a JJ McCarthy goes 4 or 5 because a team like the Vikings moves up. Now, you're also kind of thinking, all right, if I'm Denver or if I'm the Raiders, I got to get above the Vikings if JJ McCarthy is my guy. There's a lot of movement that could potentially happen in the top 15 picks on draft night. It's very exciting.
Yeah, so for all those Michigan fans out there, we're not saying that he is going to go 11. He could go in the top 5. We're just going to have to see what happens on Thursday night. But for right now, because there are no trade scenarios in this final mock draft, he will be at 11. Let's go ahead and look at picks 17 through 24. Jared Verse.
I don't know how he got here.
How did he drop so far? Walk me through this. This is an enormous steal. If this happens, huge steal for them.
Yes,
why did he drop?
So here's the thing about Jared Verse, and it kind of was this play on how the draft board fell on draft night, quote unquote. I know this is not draft night, but this is our mock draft night. Jared Verse is somebody who could have been taken. I tend to kind of lean more towards the New Orleans Saints, a team that really needs an edge rusher. But in this scenario, those teams in that 10 through 15, 16 realm, they actually are valuing cornerbacks, offensive tackles, instead of someone like a Jared Verse. And so it leaves the Jaguars sitting pretty at number 17, ready to get Jared Verse.
I mean, do you know who he would be adding on to?
I know.
Trayvon Walker. That would be horrifying to go up against. Like, I would never want to play them if Jared Verse goes to the Jags. That would be horrible. But like, I want to talk about this in general because DeJean is the only cornerback, really any specialty player, really, that's on this board. Everyone else is in the trenches.
They are.
Why? What's up with this trend right here?
Here's the thing. I can't look at this entire draft, I'm talking top 32 players, and not see such serious potential with the offensive tackles. And honestly, we have Graham Barton over there, and an interior offensive lineman, probably a center, and Jackson Powers Johnson, same exact thing. These are players that, again, offensive linemen are premium positions. I know everyone wants to talk about edge, wide receiver. Offensive tackle, to me, you got to pay those guys the big bucks.
Yes.
There's a reason why there are some big contracts doled out to some offensive tackles. If you can get some top offensive tackle talent in the draft on a rookie deal, that sets you up very, very well for an offensive line. And there are a lot of teams in this draft class at this point in time that do need offensive linemen, and this is a very, very deep class in terms of offensive tackles specifically.
Look, everyone kind of says in the NFL, the trenches are where you win games. So if you can get a guy who can be your big name guy in the trenches as a rookie and coach him up and become part of the face of a team like a Jake Matthews or Chris Lindstrom, just to name a couple that you might already know. These could be really enormous pickups, and it might not be the most flashy pick in the draft, but it could be the best for the longevity of the team, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I know everybody's not super gung-ho being like, ooh, an offensive lineman, let's go. Sorry, guys. Even though it's not a sexy pick, these guys are super important. I don't need to tell y'all that. Y'all know it. You watch football, you get it.
All right, so let's go from 24 to 25 through 32, the last third of this draft, if you will. Amarius Mims over here, Kool-Aid McKinstry, lots of guys, lots of cornerbacks and wide receivers. We're just switching the gamut over here from trench players to these specialty players. What's with this trend here in the back half of this draft?
Yeah, so let's start at 28 and 32 with Ladd McConkey and Xavier Worthy. These are two incredibly speedy and fun and dynamic players, and I honestly, those are two of the most interesting picks for me because of where they're going. They're going to Kansas City and they're going to the Buffalo Bills, where there is established upper echelon quarterback play. Those are going to be playmakers immediately, and that's exactly what you want in your first round picks. You want guys who can come in and make a difference immediately. Some of these guys on here are going to do the same for their team. I look at Chop Robinson with the Bucks. I look at Nate Wiggins with the Cardinals. I look at Amarius Mims with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they not only fill needs, but they establish a lot for the teams that they're going to.
Yeah, I think this number 32 pick right here could be a sleeper big pick in this draft. Xavier Worthy. He's just done incredible things at Texas. He ran a 4.2140 at the combine.
So I gotta
Fastest
say,
time.
I was there. I watched it. It was truly electric. It was one of those things that like I often hear scouts talk about, like you can just like feel speed. That was that moment.
You don't feel that. You see the blur. You really see the blur go by, because 4.21 is an absolute insane time. But not only is he fast, he's a great wide receiver too. So I think if the Kansas City Chiefs can get him, which wide receiver is a need for them this year, this could be a very dangerous duo with him and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce as well. Just some big names in the NFL, and having Ladd McConkey at 28 with the Bills could be really exciting for them, as they both need wide receivers. So lots to talk about, lots of excitement for so many teams. Obviously, the Falcons are sitting at number 8 right now. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been so much fun. We're going to see what happens on Thursday night at 8 o'clock in Detroit, Michigan. We're so excited for all the things that can be happening for the Falcons during this year's 2024 NFL Draft. Thank you for joining us for Tori McElhaney's final mock draft, presented by Georgia Lottery.